Hi everyone, we're back.
We're back. We did it.
I'm Renee.
And I'm Jada, her daughter, and this is Mina barking in the background. And the cat. Oh my goodness, they're fighting.
They're playing.
They're fighting. They're play fighting.
So we are from Samwell Solutions, where, you can find us at samwellsolutions.com, which is our own business and our website. And Samwell stands for social, academic, and mental wellness, because that's what we're passionate about.
Yeah, exactly. Providing better strategies and tools to basically be your best self.
Yeah, and for parents, students, and teachers.
Yeah, we need to work on the fluency of that. But anyway.
Yeah, okay. So we're back with my book, A Parent's Guide to Supporting Children in Learning at Home, which is probably backwards from your point of view, but that's all right. And we started last week, and we're just going to keep reading and discussing and talking about the things I didn't do so well when you were young, and areas I've improved,
Yes.
and areas I can still improve.
Yes. They're all about growth.
How this could be useful for you as a student as well.
Yes. What page are we even on? 10?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm thinking overall, like, our hope is that we can make working with your child painless, and knowing how to teach, or the basics of teaching, so that you can better work with your child, will make the process a lot smoother. It's not foolproof, because I was a teacher when Jada was young and we still battled. I didn't employ a lot of these best practices because there's that emotional component. So sometimes you get really worked up, maybe in fear of your child and their growth or lack thereof, and that fear can overcome common sense. And so we're hopeful that this book would help bring some calm and some peace, and help everybody remember that everyone can learn. There's nothing wrong. You just may not be using the right strategies.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the next section really nicely, which is know your philosophy. So it is undeniable. You will get frustrated. You are human. But just like children are not perfect students, adults are not perfect teachers. In these moments of frustration, try to remain calm and remember, first, there is nothing wrong. This is normal. You have the power to make changes to improve this situation by making adjustments to the areas you have control over. You are not working with a broken child. You are working with a broken instructional match. The issue you are having is nothing more than a breakdown between the child, the instruction, and the task or environment. This guide will help you better understand teaching and learning, so you'll be more equipped to determine the source of a breakdown within the instructional match and fill in instructional gaps.
So this goes back to the thing we were talking about last time with the triangle. Is that what it was? The student and the instruction and the task and the environment has to be in alignment in order to have effective instruction?
Yes, for the child to be successful. And so when I reflect on when you were young, you would shut down because you would get overwhelmed. And instead of maybe slowing down or backing up and making sure that we focused on what you were really solid on first, and then slowly building from there, I would get panicked. And
I would get panicked, sensing you're a panic.
You would definitely pick up on my panic, and then we would just start arguing.
Yes.
So we want to avoid the arguments.
So in relation to students, not even teachers teaching students, but just students teaching themselves. What I guess is, like, how can they align their instruction and their environment? Like, is this the idea of, like, not having music in the background or not having a TV in the background? Like, is that what, like, environment?
So you bring up a good point. Like,
study practices and things like that, and how a lot of students don't study effectively because they don't know how to study, and that is an instructional breakdown.
Absolutely. It's exactly the same, whether it's a student teaching themselves or it's a parent or teacher working with a child. So how often have you, or can you think of students when they're struggling to learn something, they just think, I'm so stupid.
Yeah.
The voice in their head starts making them feel broken, right? Just like the voice in my head was, oh my God, what's wrong with Jada? She doesn't understand what's going on. Like, this is really basic. They learned this last year, right? So the thinking is like, there's something wrong. I'm broken. The child's broken.
And it's like a block, because, I mean, when you're thinking that, then I was thinking the same thing, and I often do, but I've learned to, like, tame that. But I think those basic concepts even get blurred because you're so stuck on, like, you're just so overwhelmed, and then all of a sudden you can't even remember the basic things, and then you get stuck in this mental cycle that's just toxic, and you can't effectively learn anything at that point, when in reality it's, like, not you necessarily, it's just it's ineffective instruction.
Right. Or if it's a student studying, then maybe it's an ineffective study technique. Mm-hmm. Like, how many times do kids study?
But they're just, like, rereading the same thing over and over and over.
And they never practice retrieving the information from their brain.
Exactly.
Right? So it could be that the instruction is broken, or the study strategies, which would be, like, the self-equivalent of instruction if it's just you. Mm-hmm. It could be the wrong environment for you, right? Maybe the living room isn't the best place. Maybe sitting at the kitchen table when there's all this activity around is not a place where you can actually sit and focus. Mm-hmm. So considering your environment would be really important. But the task, students don't really have much control over. So on the bottom of the triangle, like we talked about last week, there's the instruction that you can change, the environment, and the task, except students can't change the task. Yeah. But that's what we want to focus on, because that's what we have control over, not the student. So just keep in mind your philosophy. Nothing's wrong. Everything's okay. It's not a broken child. It's just a broken instructional match. Mm-hmm. All right, should we do mind the mental dashboard?
Yes.
All right. Mind the mental dashboard. Our mental dashboard is made up of 3 parts: working memory, time on task, and number of repetitions needed. We need to consider these limitations when chunking information, determining the length of time a student should attend to a lesson or a task, and recognizing how many times a student needs to be exposed to a new piece of information to move it from short-term to long-term memory. When a student's mental dashboard becomes overloaded, often the child becomes overwhelmed. When this happens, new and insecure learning becomes confused, lost, or misunderstood. This can lead to inaccurate practice, which can easily become a hard habit to break. So, wow.
This kind of goes back to he says mental dashboard becomes overloaded and being overwhelmed, and
everything.
Then exactly. Even the basic stuff becomes flooded because everything is all bleh.
That was you, classic.
That was, oh my God, it still is, but definitely have worked on that and grown from then, but
so what we get from that is if we try to pile on too much information, we lose all the learning, not just the newest stuff, right? But everything.
Even the basic stuff that you haven't, because you have to have the basic stuff in a long-term memory before moving on too quickly.
Exactly. So all of the learning that's secure won't be lost, but anything that they're newly learning during that time could all be lost if overwhelmed. So there are some tricks of the trade. The next page has a lot of really good, solid, concrete information. So for working memory, children can only hold a certain amount of new information in their mind at one time. There's a chart in the book. You'd see that each 0 represents one new nugget of information. So for a child that's age 3, they can usually handle one new piece of information at a time. For a child that's 5, they can handle 2 pieces of information. For a child that's 7, they can handle 3. So you want to keep in mind that the child's age, right, starting with 3 would be one piece of information. As we go up each year, the child, the year of age, then we would be able to add on one new chunk of information. So by the time we get to, say, a 13-year-old, they can handle about 6 new pieces of information before getting completely overloaded. Now that's on average. It also depends on how comfortable they are with the new information. So it's not a perfect science as much as it's a starting point.
Yeah.
If there's too many spelling words, right, and you're practicing the same 10 over and over and over and you're not able to remember any of them, it's probably because there's too many altogether. So when applying this, you want to keep in mind limitations. Keep these limitations in mind when determining how much new information you will teach in one sitting. Instead of focusing on 10 spelling words all at once, focus on 4 words one morning, 4 words that afternoon, while also reviewing the previous 4 words, and 2 words the next morning, while also reviewing the previous 8 words. So we still get through the same 10 words, we just chunk them differently. Time on task. So how much time can a child sit and really be expected to attend? On average, children can attend or focus on a task for the same amount of time, or I should say the same amount of minutes as their age plus 2. So a 5-year-old can spend 7 minutes on task.
Oh, plus 2. That's so interesting. That's actually good to know.
A 6-year-old can spend maybe 8 minutes on a task. That's not very much, right? When you think of how lessons are divided or chunked in a classroom setting, I mean, I know in elementary school they'll have 45-minute language arts lessons.
I mean, heck, if I'm 19 and it's 2 minutes, 21 minutes, and I'm in like these 4-hour classes, are you kidding me? With like 1 5-minute break in between?
But, so I think of an elementary classroom. It might be a 45-minute language arts lesson, but they chunk in different activities.
Okay, yeah.
So as you're switching from one activity to another, it's considered like a break in that time on task.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this is really helpful for maybe practicing math facts or sitting down and reading in
like
one sitting. Studying. Though reading, I do have to give a side note because we definitely don't want 7-year-olds only reading for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a child that struggles with attention, maybe 9 minutes and then a 4-minute break and then keep going. Or maybe they read for 9 minutes, then mom reads a page or dad reads a page, and then they continue.
Okay.
Learning doesn't need to stop once you reach a student's attention limit. Switch to a different activity or take a quick movement break. So we don't have to throw out the rest of the day.
So it could just be like stretching.
It could be
chair
stretching.
And then getting back to it.
It could be, but movement might be like get out of the chair, stand up.
Okay, that makes sense.
Walk in a circle or cross the midline. And then repetition. So the number of repetitions a child needs, the number of times they need to be exposed to a piece of information for it to really move from short-term to long-term memory. The average student needs to interact with the concept 35 times in order to really become solid. So for an accelerated student, that might be 25 times. For a struggling student, that could be 55 times.
So when we say repetitions, we're talking about retrieval and like what do you mean repetition?
Good question. Not necessarily retrieval. We're talking about exposure. So maybe you're in a new science unit and in the class, they're discussing it for the week. Okay, so I don't know, the process of metamorphosis.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Going from a caterpillar to a butterfly, and they're learning all the stages, right? And so students can't just hear it once and remember that.
Yeah.
Right? They do an experiment. They do different activities in the classroom.
Okay.
So they do a bunch of different things, right? They might do a deeper dive into certain parts of the concept. And other days dive deeper into other parts of it. Does that make sense?
Okay.
But they need to be experiencing and engaging with that content an average of 35 times. Okay. Now in the classroom, especially during COVID, that didn't happen. It doesn't happen.
That's why so many kids are like, what is happening? I did not learn anything this school year because there's literally no consistent exposure like that.
Absolutely. And parents often wouldn't know that you need this much exposure. That when a student is struggling, it's probably because they just didn't have enough time to interact with that concept or that skill in the classroom setting, and they need more practice. The problem is the train keeps moving. Yeah. So more new content's being piled on in the classroom.
They get overwhelmed and they don't even have the basic. That was like me in Spanish. I feel like it was
exactly it.
But then again, I feel like it was because I wasn't really paying attention in the beginning, like to get the basics down, and then they just kept adding more on.
And that's it. The train's moving with or without you, and it's getting more complicated. So if you don't have the foundation, it's all lost.
Yeah.
Like you did Spanish from kindergarten to 10th grade.
And I don't know my ABCs. And I got A's in Spanish.
And you got A's straight in Spanish, like straight across. And you told your teacher you were struggling.
Yeah, but I couldn't articulate where. And that's why I think asking questions was so hard for me, because it was like when I was stuck, I didn't know where I was stuck. I was just like, can you repeat the entire lesson? Like, I don't know.
Right. That exactly explains it. So we have to create opportunities at home for kids to be able to continue to process, work with the material, read it over. I mean, it could be anything from a storybook related to metamorphosis. Like, think of the classroom. They're doing a science lesson on metamorphosis. Then all of a sudden during story time, they bring in a book related to it, right? The kids start doing writing activities related to it, or maybe what they see happening with the butterflies or I should say the caterpillars that they're nurturing, you know?
So then I think of how they would always say in relation to studying, like, once they teach it in class, you should go home and review the notes and everything that you learn.
Every day or two.
Or, jeez. And then they had us take Cornell notes or learn how to take Cornell notes, so then we could, like, quiz, like, on the, like, as we're taking notes, the questions are already asked for us, so then once we got home, it was already set up for a review session.
And a review meaning practice remembering it, not just reading it over.
It was both. Well, yeah.
But the Cornell notes are also nice because at the bottom, though most kids skip this step, they're supposed to write a summary.
Skip that.
But look, that's yet one more repetition of practicing the information.
Yeah.
So when students your age, high schoolers, college students, are struggling with remembering, I think this is a really powerful place to start, because they're often not getting enough exposure to the information. Like, think of how many times you've done that strategy where you'd draft it all on the whiteboard, you'd practice, you'd review your notes. That's study,
brain dump?
The brain dump. Study, write, tell, check, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think it's in the back of the book, actually. But you would go over and over and over and over again, which were all repetitions, the same information, even when you type out your notes and then you'd condense them.
That's the best way I like to study. But it's so weird because I feel like this past year, no one's had to study. Like, I feel like, because, I mean, with Zoom, it's so everything is open book. And so now so many kids are just like I have to get back into the school mode and actually, like, sitting in the classroom and going home to, like, study for an exam, like, to go in person.
But you have
I have the skills, but even then it's still low
brother.
key. Yeah, I know. He has not learned how to study at all because he's been, like, I mean, 8th grade was, like, definitely the most rigorous out of, like, middle school, and I feel like this was the year that he would have been, like, studying seriously, and it was, like, he didn't have to. And so now it's, like, 9th grade, and he doesn't have that
practice. He hasn't had enough repetitions in how to study to be proficient in studying.
And he hasn't had to learn how to study because everything comes so fast to him, but it will come to a point.
He's gonna hit a wall. So the note at the bottom says, these are guidelines. Please do not overwhelm yourself counting nuggets of new information or number of repetitions. If your student is struggling, however, these are good areas to start problem solving. So it can be just as overwhelming for a parent or teacher to try to track this
but
and
like,
live and die by it.
It's also like a basic outline on, like, okay, well, if you really don't know how to approach your child, or even if you're a student not knowing how to approach studying, like, this is a good general
starting point
on
it really
how to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay,
and I would say that time on task, especially for parents working with their kids during the summer, would be most helpful, because sometimes parents will get these workbooks or these websites, and they want them to go on there and complete so many tasks.
But determining how much and for how long should
depending
they
on the age,
realistically get through.
Yeah, and to make it meaningful, so that the student's not completely checked out and just mindlessly clicking buttons, but they're actually engaging with it with intention.
Got it.
I think that's all you have time for today.
Yeah.
But we're moving and grooving, so I'm glad for that. Well, I hope this was helpful. I also hope you guys can like, share, and subscribe our videos.
Our website is samuelsolutions.com. Again, you can find our blog and extra videos and buy her book. Can they buy? Yeah, they can buy your book through the website.
Yes, it's through the through Amazon or our website.
Yes,
it's available.
A Parent's Guide to Supporting Children Learning at Home.
Thank you, Jada.
You're welcome.
All right, and we will be back within the next week in the evening.
At some point.
But we can't give you a date because we're not that routine-oriented.
Nah, it's summertime.
Yeah,
no, I'm kidding.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
If I can click the button.